all you fine people out there in podcast land. I am your hostess, Suzanne A. Wells, and this is episode number 75 of eBay the Right Way. Today's date is August 24th, 2022. Today's guest is Louis the Toy Guy. He is back to answer listener submitted questions about Barbies. Before we get started, I wanted to remind you about the Halloween course I'm working on in the premium library. As of today, there are 4 lessons. Each is 15 minutes long, so an hour of educational content. If you're a member, make sure you check those out ASAP because we are only about 2 months away from Halloween, but that doesn't really matter because, as you know, eBay knows no season and Halloween sells all year anyway. If you're not a member yet, you have no excuse not to go take this course because you can take advantage of the free trial using coupon code 2022 free trial $, and use the link below the podcast. That code is also below the podcast. The library currently has 529 videos and 140 hours of education. So if you aren't interested in the Halloween course, there's plenty of other material you might be interested in. And if you have never looked around in the premium library, now is the time. There is something for everyone, regardless of your experience level. Okay, now let's get into the chat with Louis.
Hello, listeners. We have Louis Prizzi back with us today, and he is going to talk all things Barbie. How are you doing
Yay.
today, Louis?
I'm good. How are you today?
I'm great. We're both ready to roll with this. I put a question on my Facebook group about a week ago asking everyone for their questions for you that you would be doing this episode. So we have some questions to go through, and then we're probably just going to segue into the land of whatever comes up.
Yeah, works for me.
These podcasts go better if you don't really have an agenda. It's just organically, like we're sitting here in a coffee shop talking
Sipping coffee and chit-chatting.
That's right. That's what this is supposed to be, because eBay is so isolating. You feel like nobody understands what you do. You get excited about things other people, your loved ones, don't understand. And so we are a very specific tribe of people that totally get each other. So
right. The isolation has its pluses and minuses.
I am on board with that.
If I wanted to be around people all the time, I'd get an office job.
And a lot of us have been there and done that.
Yeah.
And the problem with an office job, for me, it wasn't the coworkers, it was the higher ups that just didn't listen to my ideas. They're like, oh, because I'm an efficiency person. I'm like, oh, we could do this so much better if we did it this way, or we could save money if we did it this way. And corporate America's answer is, it's always been like that. We don't want to.
Yeah, I was in the restaurant business for 12 years. And when I started doing this full time, I was like, yeah, I don't need to do this anymore. I don't need to be working until 2:00 in the morning. Unnecessary.
And food service is hard work,
grueling,
heavy work. It's dirty. It's exhausting. I was thinking about this the other day. I was sitting in a restaurant with my son, and I just was looking at the servers, and I'm like, they are so underappreciated. They're carrying these heavy trays, and people are rude. I mean, when it comes to their food, some people are just downright nasty. And it's like, hey, the server didn't prepare your meal.
Right.
That's the cook and the people in the back. So don't get mad at the server when it's not right.
Well, I've always said with serving, you're dealing with people when they're hungry, and people
Yeah.
are at their absolute social worst
Mm-hmm.
when they're hungry. So you gotta, it was a very big thing of you gotta not take certain things personally, because it doesn't necessarily have to do with you. They're either A, just miserable people, or
Right.
they're just hungry.
Yeah. And one thing about eBay is you have that time and space when you have to deal with nasty people
Yeah,
to step back. They're not in your face screaming at you. You can step back and regain your composure and write a professional response.
right.
Walk away. Sometimes I walk away for an hour or two and I'm like, oh, let the emotion drain out of you.
Well, I always laugh because to me, the point of shopping online is to not have to deal with other human beings. So
Uh-huh.
when people are asking me silly questions or trying to engage in things that are either already in the listing or don't really have anything to do with the listing, I'm like, just go to the mall. Why are you shopping online if what you're searching for in your shopping experience is a social experience?
Right. Yeah. Or go to Walmart. They have
Right,
toys.
right.
So yeah, I hear you, but I have a lot of respect for people in the food service business and teachers,
Oh,
both of
yeah.
those groups of people who, amazingly enough, also a lot of them sell on eBay as a side job. But
Yep.
yeah.
My buddy that lives down in your neck of the woods.
Oh yeah, did we talk about him before?
Yeah, full-time teacher and does eBay on the side.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great addition because it's so flexible. But anyway,
Yep.
let's get into Barbie.
Let's
And
do it.
Lewis has on what I thought was a Barbie t-shirt, but it's, who is she again?
Trixie Mattel. She's a
Trixie
drag
Mattel.
queen superstar
Okay.
who surprisingly has not gotten sued by Mattel yet.
When did she come out?
Oh gosh, she was on season 7 of Drag Race. So
Oh,
what is it, 7, 8 years ago?
okay.
And turned that into, I mean, talk about branding. She now has 3 million followers on Instagram, a makeup company, multiple TV shows from
Okay.
a reality TV appearance.
Okay. Well, yeah, I guess I totally missed that. But I learned something new. So now I'm going to have to go look that up and see what it is. So, okay, we are going to start with Ian Lewis, who said, I sell mostly toys and media items. I must admit, I'm usually lost when it comes to Barbie. I just know the ones with real, not painted lashes are good. Can he give us a link to a Barbie directory of some sort? So let's start with the eyelashes. Tell us about that situation.
So, rooted eyelashes are a big thing on what they call the mod era of Barbie. So that's going to be your late 60s. Think, swinging 60s London was kind of the vibe of the mod era. And they will have rooted eyelashes. But the earlier dolls, and mostly after that, will have painted. So it's not necessarily just the rooted eyelashes are good. They belong to a certain era.
Okay. That's good to know. I did not know that. So the mod era, I think of the show Laugh-In.
Yes, very that. It's bright colors.
All the groovy stuff going on,
yes.
And the granny boots.
Yes.
The white vinyl granny boots. And
Yes.
Goldie Hawn wearing that funky pink and yellow swirly dress.
Yeah. It's very that.
Okay.
And actually, a good rule of thumb if you're selling mod era dolls, always make sure you photograph those eyelashes. From the bottom up, your collectors are going to want to make sure that they are full, not missing any, that they have a nice, even spray of lashes, I guess.
Okay. That's important. Okay. Good tips. Okay. And then he wanted a link to a Barbie directory. So here's where maybe you can talk about what resources you use to identify and, I guess, authenticate.
Yeah. So I was just telling you earlier, I saw this question and I went looking for a go-to easy website that I could give everybody. And there doesn't seem to be one. So there are several, reference books. I have a couple on hand. Eames is the name of one of the books. I don't remember the exact title of it, but there are a lot of books. But the number one best thing for you for identifying is going to be Google Lens. I know that's kind of a boring answer, but it is what I will take a doll. I'll have a naked random doll and I will take a picture of her face and you can get the answer. Very good also for if you have Barbie fashions. We'll give you a nice, easy, you'll find at least the direction to go in. You'll get a name and then can kind of go from there.
And what is that website?
Using the Google app on your phone.
Oh, okay.
Just,
so you said
yeah.
Barbie fashion was another thing.
Yes.
Okay,
Well,
that's
it's
just
for
your
looking up
keyword.
the Barbie fashions.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
For clothing.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I thought that was a website, but it's just the keywords you're using. So,
Yeah.
I haven't even done that. I was thinking, sometimes you put something into Google Lens and you get so much stuff that's not relevant. I thought that might be
90% of the time, it is a game changer. It's a game changer for toys. I mean, you can put in a random action figure and you will get an identification in 5 seconds.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
So it has evolved and it's smarter now.
I think compared to what it was, I just got into it maybe within the last year, but I love it. Very, very useful. And I'm very anti-technology for the most part. I don't trust it. It never works for me. But Google Lens has been a game changer when it comes to identifying.
That is good to know because sometimes we try a technology and it doesn't work the way we want. And we're like, yeah, that doesn't work.
Yep. You'll try it once and turn off on it.
Yeah, we forget that maybe it's evolved since I used it last. Let me try it again. I ran into this with QuickBooks.
Yeah.
It's totally not about Barbie, but like I said, organic conversation. So I am changing CPAs because they just get a little greedy with their prices.
Right.
So everyone I interviewed was like, oh, do you just put your stuff in QuickBooks Online and give us access? And I'm like, no. And I kept hearing this and I'm like, this is what everybody's doing it on their own, not just giving their information to their CPA, like in a list. So I got on there and tried it. And I tried it maybe when it first came out years ago. And it was just, I thought my head was going to explode.
Right.
I'm like, no, I don't want to do this. This is not user friendly. I don't like this. So I just stayed away from it. And now I am going to be saving so much money on paying a CPA because I can do all this myself and it's so easy. It's so user friendly. I just had this epiphany of like, where have I been? And it was that just you try a technology, doesn't work good for you, or it's new, or it's not a good fit, and then you never check back again. And it's just evolved without my knowledge. It's like,
right.
See, so back to Google Lens. Yeah, I think some of us stay away from that on things like logos and hallmarks and signatures because it just brought up so much irrelevant information.
I mean, if you're putting in something that's kind of specific, you'll get specific answers. But like I've tried to use it for, let's say, identifying a piece of pottery or a signature on the bottom of a piece of glass. And that's where it can get a little less helpful. But with toys, I've noticed it's incredibly, incredibly helpful.
Okay, well, that is good to know from someone like yourself that specializes and also uses Google Lens to know that we need to give that a second try. If we were like, if we poo-pooed it at the beginning, like this doesn't work.
Right. And it's great when you're just outsourcing in general, you can just, I know this is something, but I can't think of what it is to look it up quick. Boom, pull out that Google Lens and you will 9 times out of 10 get a lead to at least throw in there.
Great. Thank you for that. Okay. And then Wendy Kruger suggested you should create a BOLO Barbie book. And so, yeah, Wendy, good idea. And you should create a jewelry book. So, what is your response to that?
There are people far more qualified who already have written Barbie books than me. I'm just a collector for about 15 years now who has picked up information to help me along the journey.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, there's bolos, but you know, it's not like the things that are worth money, you're gonna know are worth money
Yeah.
with a little bit of research. Whereas, you know, like your bolo book has stuff that people would never even think of.
Yeah.
You know, if I told you, yeah, be on the lookout for the first ever #1 ponytail Barbie. Well, yeah, everyone knows that.
Well, everyone knows now anyway. And as someone who creates information products, you know, it's not just, oh, go put together this. People say that kind of flippantly because, yeah, they want the information, but it takes you away from your core business. It's all
Right.
about time. And I can tell you that once you start a project like that, you go down a lot of rabbit holes with putting it together, and then you keep thinking more things to put in it, and then keeping it updated is really a challenge because
Yeah.
things in the market change. And I understand where Wendy was coming from suggesting that it
Yeah,
should.
of course. It'd be a great idea. I'm just not the
Yeah,
one
that
to
would
do
be
it.
nice. And but it's just, yeah, it takes a lot of time to put something like that together. So
I have ADHD. I can't focus on projects like that.
yeah, and it's a long-term thing, and then you want to have it edited and you want to have it laid out nicely, and there's a lot of steps. So you are a wonderful resource for
Right.
toys and action figures and dolls and Barbies. And some people just don't want to do that kind of work.
Right.
They just want to work on what their passion is. And, you know, some people, you can feel your energy level drop when you're doing a task you don't like.
Yeah.
I hate doing this. I don't want to do this. And
That explains death piles.
it's not going to turn out very well if you don't want to do it in the first place.
Exactly.
Think about those papers you had to write in school about a boring topic. They weren't,
Yeah.
you just did it because you had to. So
Yeah.
I think for people like you that, you know, you have a specialty, you have a lot of knowledge, you need to keep riding that out and doing that. And you know, if we have questions, or you do answer questions on the group sometimes,
Yeah.
when you know.
Yeah.
So that's very helpful. Okay, we're going to move on to Gloria Gonzalez talking about Barbie with green ear. What does that mean? And can
So do I do have a girl that I could maybe show something?
So unfortunately, this is a podcast, so you're just going to have to listen to our adjectives.
Bear with us.
Listen to our adjectives describing this.
So when the early Barbies of the 60s were sold with metal earrings. So very often, as happens with toys, a kid put a toy away and it sat in an attic for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. In certain atmospheres, those metal earrings have caused green to form in the vinyl itself.
Mm-hmm.
So this one I've treated. I don't know how well you will be able to see this. No, you can't see it like at all. It's not super dark, but
I can see a little bit of color.
yeah, a little discoloring around the ear.
Lightly tinted green.
And this one actually is interesting. The one I'm showing right now, she had it so bad that it actually changed the color of her lips to black.
I see that. She's like goth Barbie now.
Yeah. I bought her. I was like, oh well, this is a cool goth chick. So green ear is a pain in the butt, and so the go-to product amongst Barbie collectors is actually CLR.
Oh, calcium, lime, and rust. That commercial from TV. It cleans everything.
Yeah, including Barbie. But what stinks is, I want to say probably about 5-8 years ago, they changed the formula. So it doesn't work as well as it used to, but it still works. And the easiest way to do that is you're literally gonna pop the doll's head off, which comes off super easy,
Mhm.
just with a little bit of pressure, nothing crazy. The old ones are just on with a little knob. They're not pronged like newer dolls are. And I actually have one going now. Throw the head in a glass cup and pour the CLR, fully submerge it. It looks like a science experiment. You leave it in the sun for a couple of weeks, check it sporadically, and you will notice the green will go away. Certain productions of Barbie are more receptive to it than others. So if you have like a ponytail Barbie, the vinyl is very receptive to it. A bubble cut Barbie, the vinyl is very receptive to it. The ones, for whatever reason, with what they call the swirl ponytail style, are very difficult to treat, as well as Little Miss Fashion Queen here, who's a
Oh.
doll that wears wigs.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me?
She came with a whole little wig wardrobe.
Oh my gosh.
But what's great is now they sell like what they call safety earrings. So they look just like the original earrings, but they have plastic posts.
Ah.
So you can get the same appearance and not have to worry about terrible green ear.
Well, I want to make a comment about how easily their heads come off because probably in the 70s, I was around 10. One day I found my brother with a whole bunch of Barbie heads lined up on a fence, and he
Oh
was
no.
shooting his BB gun and using
my
them
God.
for target practice.
Oh, what a small target. Not even
I know. It's like, are you some kind of sadist? What is this? What is going on? And it was
That's
just,
not even practical.
yeah, I mean, he just, siblings, we are a year and a half apart.
That's me and my sister. We're a year and a half
So,
apart.
we would come up with things to torture each other. So, anyway, yeah, apparently their heads came off really easily. And he did not put my Ken doll's head up there or his own G.I. Joe's head. He only used the girl Barbies. So I don't know.
We'll let a therapist unpack that.
Well, he was the only boy with 3 sisters, so he was probably just letting off some steam there.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure he had names for each one of those heads too.
Yeah, I'm sure. So, well, he's probably getting me back for pushing him down the stairs in a cardboard box.
Woof.
My older sister and I, we were playing Six Flags in the basement, and so we came up with this ride of putting our 3-year-old brother in this big box and pushing him down the stairs.
Oh God.
Woo, yeah, fun of being a sibling in the 70s.
No one questioned it.
Yeah, mom is just like,
And there's no
fun.
video evidence.
Yeah, y'all have fun. Watch your brother.
Now that would be on TikTok.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to Susie Grant said, I still have some of my Barbies from the early mid 70s. Is it best to lot with the accessories or sell separate? I have the bike and pool, which are missing one part each.
Yeah, list them up as is, the pool and the bike. Just specify that it's missing a part. That's not a problem. When it comes to, play sets or things like that, sell it as is. As far as dolls and outfits, if you have a doll in her original outfit, list it as complete as possible. If you have just, the separate outfits that were sold, list them as complete as possible. I mean, if you're looking things up and you see that, let's say a complete outfit, let's say goes for $35, but just one of the, and let's say your dress is a little dirty or whatever. If just the shoes from that outfit go for 25, I usually will put the dress to the side to put as part of a lot and sell it all together and sell the shoes separately. Money is in the accessories.
Well, and there's really no right or wrong way to do it. It's just how much time do you want to spend? Because when you get one of those giant tubs full of stuff, which I did help a friend try to sort through her Barbie collection from the 60s and 70s, and then her daughter's from the 90s. It was all mixed together, and it was just,
Oh boy.
we did it for maybe 20 minutes and tried to lay out the outfits, and it was like, yeah, let's just go to lunch.
It's daunting. It's daunting,
This is
even
a
even
lot, and
for someone
everything's
like
so
me.
everything's so tiny, you know,
Yeah.
and reading what's on the labels, you know, that got to be tedious. And I know that project would have just been perfect for somebody who likes that kind of task and who would know what the outfits were, because we
Yes.
didn't know what went with what. And, you know, you have to look all that up. I know there's one outfit, it's the raincoat, the blue and yellow raincoat. There's a rain hat, and it sells for like, I don't know, over $1,000.
Oh wow. Oh, it could be from Braniff Airlines.
Give us some insight on that kind of situation when you just have a whole bunch of jumbled up stuff. Where do you even start?
That is where Google Lens becomes your best friend.
Okay.
So let's say you find a dress, you Google Lens and you find the name of that dress, and then you can instantly find out what accessories came with that.
Okay.
Did it come? It came with shoes. It came with a hat. It came with an apple. It came with, you know, there are outfits that come with little tiny pair of working scissors.
Oh.
60s Barbie especially came with tons of little accessories for additional play that were, you know, kind of useless. Barbie can't hold them. You can't really do anything with them, which is why they've gotten lost over the years and why they're worth money. Well, I just recently bought a bunch of 80s era Barbies, and they're some of them are way more expensive than I thought, because I have, you know, the Hispanic version or the African American version, and they were just less made. Surprisingly, the Hispanic ones seem to be worth even more than the African American, which I thought was super interesting.
Okay.
But like, let's say the Caucasian version in her original box will be worth like $40 or $50. The Hispanic was like $300.
Okay.
Sure.
Interesting. Well, and another thing we ran across was my friend's daughter, who she's 26 now, the daughter. She had a lot of those Barbies in the boxes that were made to be collectible in the 90s,
Yep.
2000s, Christmas Barbie and Disney
Hallmark
Barbie
and
and all that
Avon.
stuff. And we looked all those up, and really they weren't worth more than like $20.
Yeah. Yep. That is very often I will try to find, you know, if a garage sale says, oh, Barbie collection, mentally I already know that I'm about to walk into at least 50% holiday dolls available through the Avon catalog, dolls that were available at Hallmark, things that were sold as collectibles.
Well, and I know that parents with girls in the 90s, early 2000s,
Yep.
a lot of those Barbies were given by grandparents.
Yes.
Or aunts and uncles. And they're like, you can't play with it. You have to keep it in the box because it's going to be so valuable. Well,
yep.
How unfortunate that they didn't get to play with these dolls, and they're not worth anything. And
exactly.
They played with them the whole time.
Exactly.
And, you know, all that family drama, because I'm sorry, when a grandparent gave something to my kid, I let him play with it. I just thought that was torture, especially my daughter, that one of the grandparents gave her a few of those. And there's this beautiful doll in this box with this beautiful dress. And what 4-year-old wouldn't want to play with her? And it was just, we tried it for a few weeks, and all she wanted was play with that doll. And I'm like, you know, this is not worth it. If grandma or aunt, whoever wants these dolls, she just needs to buy them for herself and keep them in her own house and look at them, because I just think that's like so unfair to a child, a little kid, to give them something. Here's your present, but you can't play with it. No.
Right.
Not worth it. So,
and then you run into the problem a lot, because people held on to these things for 20, 30 years. They feel obligated, not they feel entitled to get a large sum of money because they put in that time investment.
Right.
And so then you're trying to explain, and that's when you just got to walk away. Do not argue with people when they say that this holiday Barbie is worth $2,000. It's not, but you're never going to get through to them.
Yeah. It's like Beanie
Figure it out.
Baby. They just think it's worth a bunch, and yeah, it's not. So, and it's because they were mass produced.
Yes.
You can't create a collectible and then mass produce it and expect it to be expensive. It's the thing,
Not on the level that those were.
It's the things that were not mass produced, like that one, McDonald's toy that only came out for a month and then they didn't make it anymore, things like that, or with errors on them, errors in the artwork, or
things that, like, action figures. It's interesting. Like, let's say, Masters of the Universe, the He-Man figures were some of the best-selling lines of their time. They sold millions of these. But those, especially on the card, are much rarer because kids were actually playing with them.
Mm-hmm.
So for them to be on the card is a rarity, as opposed to a 1997 holiday Barbie, which 90% of them are in the boxes.
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly. Yeah. And you see things come up on my feed occasionally, or a story about a Barbie collector, and it's all those more modern ones in the boxes. And it's not
that
like
late 90s, early 2000s. Once you get past that hump, don't get me wrong, there are valuable ones of that era, ones by Bob Mackie and things like that. There is money in certain dolls of that era. But once you get past that and you get into the late 2000s, Barbie became way more collectible again. They started doing smaller editions, dolls that were only 25,000, 50,000, which sounds like a big number, but when you have hundreds of thousands of doll collectors out there, there is a little desirability. And at that era, they were doing labels. So you had pink label was open edition, silver label was 50,000, gold label was 25,000, and then you had platinum label, which would be under 1,000. And those became a bloodbath.
That's good information. I didn't realize
so if
that's
you
what
see
those different labels meant.
Yes, I mean, it's a small, not even 10-year period that they were playing with those labels. They've changed it now, which stinks because it was kind of cool. But those would be available through the Barbie fan club, and you knew, March 12th at 10 o'clock, this doll was going on sale, and you were on that computer refreshing like an animal.
Oh, so it's like the Harry Potter books. You just
right.
stood in line to get them.
Yes, exactly. You'd sat on the computer and you would get put, this was before the digital waiting room thing, which is so popular now with collectibles. It was torture because that website would just crash.
Oh, right.
Because you had 200,000 people trying to get 999 dolls.
So I wouldn't say advice, but maybe recommendation. If you walk into a estate sale, garage sale, and you see all these Barbies in the boxes, should you spend any time looking through them?
For sure. I mean, unless you see that it's all holiday dolls. No. But if you're noticing, look for designer names. Barbie worked with a ton of big name fashion designers for many years, still does. And a lot of those are valuable. The Bob Mackie dolls of the 90s, couple of those, a lot of those go for well over $100. There's money to be made. Put some effort in. I mean, if you're seeing, not effort sounds rude, put the research time in. If you're seeing that they're all Avon or Hallmark, don't waste your time. But if, there's so much beautiful craftsmanship on dolls of that era. They really, I mean, you'll have about one of these Bob Mackie dolls, they're completely like beaded. There's thousands of little individual beads on them. So there's money in there.
And
it's
then
always worth a shot.
The opposite end of the spectrum. Did you see Casey's garbage find with the Scooter and Skipper and all the clothing.
I saw you made the post you made about it, but I didn't see the original
Okay, well,
post.
what happened there was he found it in the garbage. I think at a thrift store. Like they just threw it out, and they called Scooter the ugly Scooter because she was kind of creepy looking.
She's so weird looking. I love her.
But he was like, I have no idea what this is, and can anybody help me? And he posted pictures, and it was a bunch of people looked at the pictures like, oh, this is the outfit, and they're like, this goes with these boots and this dress and this hat, and they were all helping him figure out the outfits.
Right.
And I think to date he's made over $400 on that
Beautiful
stuff. There was a case, there was a few dolls, and he actually rescued it from the trash,
which makes it even better.
Redonated it, and he was telling the thrift store, like, this is not trash, you should probably sell these. And then he saw it in the trash again. Like they just didn't want to deal with it. So
stupid.
It's an amazing thing when you just find all that in the garbage. Like,
yeah.
Okay,
and you saved it from getting trashed, and it got in the hands of people that were going to love and respect it.
And it's all this just dumb little tiny clothes and plastic shoes.
Yeah.
Our next question is from Robin. She's got a few. The first one is fix the hair or not?
Depends. If you were dealing like, let's say with the early ponytails, they're kind of an intricate style, poofy bangs. The hair is wrapped around the ponytail itself. Leave it. Unless you know how to tie that properly, you're going to drive yourself crazy. Sometimes if it's a doll that just has, normal straight hair or wavy hair, give it a quick wash. It'll just present better in your photos.
Do you use anything special to wash their hair?
I use Dawn dish soap to get the grunge off of them. And then, I'm a little bougie. I use Wen cleansing conditioner.
WEN. Yes.
Yes. Because I had bought so much of it before I was bald. And it's phenomenal on doll hair, but that's expensive. I don't necessarily, recommend that for regular people. People love fabric softener is a go-to for a lot of people.
Well, and I've heard good and bad things about that. The good is that yes, it detangles it fixes the yucky matted hair, but then the other camp says don't use it because it can cause the hair to mold.
I've never heard that. You're just going to want to make sure it's dried.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would never put anything away wet, but yeah, I certainly have not experienced any issues.
Okay. Good to know. Her next question is repair torn clothes or not?
No, a collector will want to do that themselves the way they like. And, some people won't care. I recently sold a dress that had like a chiffon overlayer to it. And there were there's no way to repair that. It's such a delicate fabric. And I still sold it for like $65.
What was the outfit? It was just a dress?
It was a dress for an ensemble called Junior Prom.
Okay.
No, that's not right.
Okay,
Maybe
so it's like
right.
a formal, full length.
Yeah, it was a red
dress.
Yes, a red fancy gown. And in mint condition, it goes well over $100. So someone will spend that $50, $60 for it to not be mint, but still have that item in their collection.
And I can imagine maybe they have a seamstress they use or someone who's going to do it perfect.
Yeah. Right.
You may spend your time trying to repair this microscopic split seam that you can't really see very well.
And to collectors that care about condition, importantly, whether it's repaired or torn, that's the same amount of damage to them.
Okay. So it doesn't affect the price really, because they might want to do it over again anyway. So
exactly.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay. And what about single shoes?
Yes, sell them. Sell them. With the 60s and early 70s stuff, one of your shoes will be marked Japan. So you'll have one that's marked Japan and one that is not marked Japan. No price difference in the two. Yeah, sell those single shoes because people are always, very often you will be missing a shoe. I've sold single shoes for $15, $20 sometimes.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Robin's next question. Are new dolls in box, but in smashed boxes still good, like destroyed boxes, or better to just go ahead and open it and part it out?
Depends on the doll. If it is in the box, let's say it's a $35 doll, take it out. It'll present better in your photos and your listing as, and write in your listing that you took it out of a destroyed box.
Mm-hmm.
Your pictures aren't going to look nice if it's a junked, destroyed box. But if it's a doll that's worth a couple $100 in a box that's problematic, keep it as is and let that collector make the decision.
I feel like a lot of these questions it just depends on the situation.
Yes.
There's really
That's a big part of it's all situational. Because collectors collect differently. So what matters super importantly to collector A, collector B doesn't care about at all.
Right. Yeah. There's as many different ways to collect Barbies or anything else as there are people doing it.
Right. And Barbie's such, you have adult, this is a 63-year history. So there's it's overwhelming because there is so much.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, and it constantly evolves.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's reselling again. It's always evolving.
Yes.
And I think, well, I guess you heard that we lost Olivia Newton-John yesterday.
I did. Did I cry yesterday watching the finale of the movie Xanadu? Yes, I did.
I know. And I listened to her audiobook earlier in the year, and it was just, she beat cancer like 3 times.
I know. It's wild.
Fighting. But on that note, when we lose a beloved celebrity that there is a Barbie of,
which there is not of Olivia Newton-John, which makes me sad.
I didn't think so. But isn't there like a Liz Taylor Barbie and different? The point I'm making is when that happens, collectible. Oh, that's beautiful. Collectibles tied to that celebrity, the price is going to change.
Yes.
So that happens.
I love celebrity dolls. I have a whole book all about different celebrity dolls. They're the worse, the better sometimes. For me personally.
Well, and whenever they first started doing that, those are going to be the most collectible. Like, who was the first
goes back
celebrity?
I want to say Charlie Chaplin was the first movie star made into a toy.
Okay, so what about Barbie specifically?
Barbie, I think the first celebrity tie-ins for Barbie would be Twiggy. 60s teen supermodel Twiggy.
Mm-hmm.
And Julia, played by Diane Carroll in the 60s TV show. Which was also a big deal because she was an African-American actress.
What was the show called?
It was called Julia.
Okay. And
not a super well-known show now. I don't know. I don't think it ran for super long. And they basically used an existing face mold and just changed the hair on it and put it in a nurse's uniform.
Okay.
But I think those are two of the Barbie brand specific first celebrities. Someone will tell me I'm wrong, I'm sure. But
well, and I was reading Brooke Shields' book earlier this year, and they had a doll made of her. And I don't think it was a Barbie; it was just a doll.
No, different company.
Like a Barbie.
Yeah.
But she was telling the story that her mother made them change the proportions because
her mother was a nightmare.
Yeah, her mother was just a train wreck. But that's the bust had to be made smaller because Brooke didn't have big boobs.
Right.
Like Barbie would, if she was a real person, she'd tip over,
Right.
That's not real. So they actually I think they had it made in a Barbie factory. They had to change the mold
Yeah.
to smaller and more proportionally correct.
And that's a lot of times why a lot of companies don't bother with celebrity dolls, is because sometimes it's too much of a pain in the butt.
Mhm.
The celebrity, when you're dealing with licensing, that licensee gets final approval. So let's say Mattel can spend 6 months working on a face mold, and then they hand it in to get approval, and they go, no, we don't like it. Change the chin, change the cheeks.
Right.
So you'll have a doll that is meant for a movie to come out, next year, and the doll may not come out until afterwards because of licensing hell.
And production issues now that's the common problem with everything is supply chain problems, production issues, can't get enough people to work in the factory to make enough of the product, and just on and on. It's
At this point, they're just releasing less dolls every year now.
Yeah, we're just in a world of, you just have to accept the situation and wait.
Yeah.
So
That Brooke Shields story is funny. I just got this 30-inch Marie Osmond doll this weekend at a flea market.
Okay.
And Marie Osmond, everyone knows, Mormon. The Mormon church was very hands-on with her career in the 70s. Like everything needed to be approved. And this doll actually has molded on lingerie, so she doesn't appear naked.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. And I was like, that's why I had to take a bath with her yesterday. And
Well, and that brings me to the next question. How do you clean them?
Yeah. So you are always going to want to start with warm, soapy water. Is the number one way. You just most of the time, it's just little surface dirt. So you're just going to want to get rid of that. If you don't have to submerge them, don't submerge them. If you don't have to wet the hair, don't wet the hair. Warm, soapy water and a damp cloth is going to take care of most of your problems.
Okay, so you don't need to do an OxyClean soap and all.
No, I mean, OxyClean will work great for clothing. Specific clothing, cotton, stuff like that. Don't use it with, chiffons or satins. You're gonna, follow basic laundry instructions.
Okay, great. And now Stephanie Oram asked, is it more profitable to sell them clothed or unclothed? I've got Barbies from the 60s. And I think we already went over that it just depends on how you want to do it. Well,
if you're talking the 60s dolls, the Barbies and the clothing were sold separately originally. So yeah, a Barbie would come when you bought her in the box, she came in a swimsuit with some shoes, jewelry. That was it. The more complete you can do that, the better, of course. But when it comes to the outfits, yeah, you're going to want to sell those separately if they're complete. I mean, if I have just a dress of an outfit, I'll throw it on a doll because, again, it presents better in your photos. But yeah, separate for the most part.
Well, and I think it's like anything else. Go with your gut, try it one way. If it sits there, you get a bunch of questions. Oh, can I just buy the outfit?
Which you will get.
You can always change the listing. You can always take it down and do it the other way. So right. I don't think there's a right or wrong. And it has to do with when the right buyer sees it.
Well, my thing is also, how can I maximize my profits? So, if I can, let's say there's a complete outfit, again, that goes for $35. I could list that complete for $35, or I could sell the dress for $10, the shoes for $25, the hat for $15. It depends how you want to do it.
Okay, here is a what would you do question from Eric, who doesn't have any Barbie experience. He said, we have probably 100 pieces of what look like 60s outfits, the van, the airplane, plus various dolls. What is the best way to date these and list them? I've never sold a Barbie anything. They've been by my desk for months because I don't even know where to begin.
It's daunting. Google Lens is going to be again. I mean, I hate to give that as like it seems like a flippant answer, but that's going to be your best way to ID it. The van and the airplane, while awesome, are not super valuable unless, if they're super complete or if you have boxes, of course, that adds to the value, but they're large, they're expensive to ship, and no one has the space. So I had the airplane, I think it was mostly complete. I think I might have gotten $30 or $40 for it after sitting around for a year and a half because no one has the room for it. And they're not, uncommon to find locally.
And here's a little Barbie story. I reconnected with a childhood friend a couple years ago, and that's what we did. We played Barbies in her driveway. And she was one of two children, the only girl. So she always got, the best girly things like the canopy bed with the pink bedspread and just was so girly. And so she had all the good Barbie stuff, the plane, the swimming pool, all that, the townhouse, all that stuff. And so she brought some of it to lunch when we met, and she's like got her trunk of her car open and I'm looking stuff up. It's worth like some, side deal in a back alley Barbie sale.
Right.
And that's what we found was that the bigger pieces weren't worth as much. But one time, I think we were maybe 5 or 6, we were playing in her driveway with the pool and our Barbies. And she just got in the pool for her birthday. It was in June. And our Barbies didn't have bathing suits. So we just took their clothes off and just played in the pool. And her mother came out and she was horrified that the Barbies were naked. And she made them little swimsuits out of gauze. Because she was so embarrassed about their nakedness. And
that was a big part when Barbie was presented as a toy originally. Up to that point, the only dolls that were really available were baby dolls. Or, they were they weren't overly, shall we say, developed.
Right. They were dolls that looked like babies or little kids.
Yeah.
They didn't have the anatomical parts.
Right.
Yeah.
So there was a lot when Barbie was first presented at Toy Fair in 1959. Of course, at that point, most of the buyers were men. They were outraged that there was this sexy, voluptuous toy being presented to children. Because up to that point, it was all about, toys should prepare a young girl to want to be a mother and a housekeeper. So you had baby dolls and you had a toy-sized vacuum.
Yeah,
and things like that.
Dressy Bessie, where you could practice on the clothing stuff.
Right.
And then, thinking back, I had little baby dolls.
Yeah. But then what ended up happening is it showed young girls how to, want to present themselves nicer. And a lot of mothers at the time did notice that, my child wants to be well-groomed like Barbie and things like that. Because Barbie originally, when she came out, had little nippies, and they were outraged and removed them. But you can still, every once in a while, one will come across where she does, not detailed, obviously, but there are extra bumps in the bosom. And those are, I actually have one here that has, you're not going to be able to see this, but she does have little extra.
I see. That's pretty anatomically correct.
Yeah, a little bit. And so the earlier dolls, you'll often find them, they're very pale, kind of ghostly color because the vinyl kind of drained. And this one, her breast area is still a little pink.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And they started making Barbie doing professions like Pan Am Barbie, be a stewardess. So what
Yep.
we
Stewardess, an astronaut, a
a
nurse.
veterinarian. Yeah, all these different careers that she could have other than
Yeah.
just, being Barbie and with her little
Right.
sister Skipper, which I love Skipper.
Skipper's
And then
adorable.
Scooter, who we've said is already kind of creepy. So you talked about the vinyl, and that leads us into our next question, which this is just rolling
We keep
along.
doing this.
I'm not doing this on purpose. Peg asked, I have dolls from the 60s and 70s that have the stickiness on their legs from the rubber breaking down. Is there a way to clean them or just disclose? I read that baby powder works on Cricut cartridges that are sticky, but haven't tried it with the dolls.
It's going to keep coming back, unfortunately. So you can clean it up, but it's going to keep coming back regardless. So, I would clean it up for your list. Again, Dawn will clean it up nicely. But I would disclose it or just leave it as is. I mean, when it comes to the 80s and 90s stuff, people don't even want it. The dolls are so readily available without that issue that with that issue, people don't want to bother. But like when you're dealing with the 60s and 70s stuff, a lot of them will get what we call greasy face. And you can clean it up, but it does keep coming back.
Yeah, because it's just,
and that's just, it's a chemical breakdown.
Right. Okay. All right. And then Melancia asked, I know a little about Barbie clothing, but ran across a small container of them. So my question is, how can you tell authentic Barbie Mattel clothing versus clothing that was handmade or maybe even just cheap dollar store Barbie stuff?
Right. So Mattel stuff will always have a tag. Not every piece in an outfit will have a tag, but you will have a tag that is usually for the 60s and into the early 70s. It is a white tag with Barbie written in black script.
Okay.
For those of you who can't see what I'm showing Suzanne right now. It will be labeled. Homemade stuff obviously will not have a label. You'll also be able to tell from the stitching and the way it's made. If it looks a little janky, it's not Mattel. Mattel stitching will look super professional. But also don't discount some of the off-brand stuff, the made in Hong Kong knockoff. There's a market for some of that stuff too. Unfortunately, that stuff is super hard to research because there is no kind of guide for most of it. But there are certain Barbie knockoff items that do have some value.
Okay. So again, just research. Okay. And the last question is from Katya. She said, are all Mattel dolls marked? I have a baby from allegedly Big Family set that is not marked. That's just another Mattel line of stuff. So her question is it always going to say Mattel?
It should. Either if it doesn't on the butt, it should say Mattel or something on the back of the head under the hairline.
Okay.
That's actually a good rule of thumb. So all the time you'll see people say, oh, I got this doll from the 60s because her butt says 1966 on it. That does not mean that is when your doll is from. That is the trademark date.
Right. Yeah. Do they even have years on them of what year it was made?
No, not individually, because the bodies themselves were trademarked. So, because they were basically inventing as they went along in the early days. So you will not see after a certain date, there really isn't. It's just that one blanket date, 1966, and that goes all the way into the 90s.
Okay. Well, that was a lot of information about Barbie. My question is, was she modeled after a specific person?
She was named for the creator's daughter, Barbara.
Okay, right.
but the idea of the doll herself came from when the creators, the handlers, Ruth Handler, was in Germany, and there was a doll that was popular at the time called Build Lily, who was a comic book, a newspaper comic character, who was, shall we say, a woman of ill repute. And I actually have a tattoo of her.
Oh, and there she is.
And there she smoked, she drank, she enjoyed the company of gentlemen. And they saw this doll and said, oh, we don't have something on the American market that is like this. We could do something with this.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of stole the idea and ran with it from there.
Okay. Well, I'm sure I could look that up. It's just more fun to ask you and then see your tattoo of it. So who knew?
Yes, which is really crazy because I found this picture on a doll box and I thought it was so great. And then when I was at a doll show, I met someone and he's like, my friend drew that art for that doll box. And I got linked up with the artist, and he loved that someone had his art tattooed.
That's great. Okay, well, we have made it about an hour of Barbie information.
Barbie information.
So, do you know this much about action figures?
I know. I mean, this is where I'm the most comfortable. Action figures. It's such a wider net. I mean, we stuck with Barbie, but if you go to fashion dolls in general, then the net gets huge. Action figures, I know enough to make some money off of it.
Okay. Well, I was just already thinking about our third episode, what we could talk about there, because you are a wealth of information about toys and dolls. So we'll figure that out when the time comes.
Yeah.
Okay. Any last remarks before we end this podcast?
I don't know. Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to spend some time with you.
Yeah.
As far as Barbie goes, yeah, it sounds like a cop out, but it's research. It's again, 63 years of information out there, and once you learn it, you retain it. That's how I know all of this, just from looking things up. This style of hair, this face mold, and you just retain it, and then you kind of know what you're looking for.
Yeah, practice
With everything.
Okay, well, thanks for making some time for me today. What's your plan? Are you going shopping or listing?
I have kind of started steering away from the thrift stores on Mondays and Tuesdays, because Mondays they don't really restock, and Tuesday is senior day at Savers, and the other brand of store doesn't do anything. And I'm just getting mad when I'm leaving with nothing every day. So I've kind of just been using Monday and Tuesdays to do more stuff at home.
Yep. Catch up, regroup, get ready to go hunting on Wednesday.
Right.
Okay. Well, thanks again, Lewis, and we'll see you on the group.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Always a pleasure talking with Lewis. He just cracks me up. We'll have to find another reason to get him back on again in the future. Moving on to today's trivia question. If Barbie were a real person, what would her measurements be? Here are 5 seconds to think about it. If Barbie was an actual woman, she would be 5 feet 9 inches tall, have a 39-inch bust, an 18-inch waist, 33-inch hips, and a size 3 shoe. Barbie calls this a full figure and likes her weight at 110 pounds. At 5'9", weighing 110 pounds, Barbie would have a BMI, which is body mass index, of 16.24 and fit the weight criteria for anorexia. Although she's long been considered the universal ideal for a woman's figure, an analysis of her doll shape in proportion to a fully grown woman shows Barbie is anatomically impossible and would be reduced to walking on all fours and incapable of lifting anything. So now you know Barbie's measurements are completely unrealistic. Okay, we have reached the end of this podcast. Thanks so much for stopping by and spending the last hour with us. I'll be back next week as usual with another fun seller interview. Have a fun day on eBay. Bye.